I want everybody to say, talk to me then, what? 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 Lay, talk to me then, what? Talk to me then, what?
Good day to everyone. Oh man, it's been a while. It's been a while. It's been a long while. It's been a long while. I welcome you to this channel. If you're a new viewer or it's the first time you come across my content, I welcome you to this channel. It's been a while since I've shared my honest opinions on pretty much whatever is going on. And if this is your first time viewing my content, I am Ntenjwa, and the whole purpose of this show is just for me to share my opinions to the world, because it was brought to my attention that my opinions shouldn't just be something that stick in my brain or that I share within my circle, but rather it should be something that the whole world gets to know. People need to know what my thoughts are on certain things, or well, on everything basically. So without further ado, let's get to it. But before I get to the topic of the show, of this episode, there's just a few things that I want to mention. This show is now going to have its own channel on YouTube and on Rumble. There's also something that I'm trying to do with another platform. You will see at the end of the show, there's certain differences that you'll be noticing. But it was all because I've decided that, you see, when something makes sense, you must just go all in, right? And that's part of the reason why I decided that this show deserves its own channel, not be a show that is just within a channel that is dedicated to totally something else, like something different. So this show is going to have its own channel, and it's going to have some accounts just posting the shorts and, posting the show basically. So just be aware of that. I'll add the links to everything, and then I'll also post this episode on the channel itself. So your support will be highly appreciated. It is still fairly a new show. It's still fairly a new concept. It hasn't reached a lot of people. So the more people it reaches, then it's going to get to what I want it to be. But let's get to it. And, initially I thought I was going to come back in July. But now a lot of things have been happening, and I'm like, man, I have so many opinions regarding this particular thing. And because I was taking this long hiatus, I can't just come back out of nowhere and then go back to my hiatus. Like, it mustn't be like I was taking a nap. Like, I'm taking a hiatus, and it was really a personal thing. Like, there was an episode where I said, this is going to be that I'm back, but I wasn't actually back because there were certain things that I didn't handle that I thought I had handled. But anyway, let me not waste your time on that. Man, it's unfortunate how whenever I try to gain back my, how can I put this? Whenever I try to get back my love for humanity, I just get disappointed. Once again, I'm disappointed in humanity. Like, this is not specific to any gender. I'm disappointed in the whole of humanity. So as you guys know, you guys know what's trending. A particular show is trending for its obvious views, and as always, I have my views. Some of them, I'm actually surprised at the people who have been sharing their reviews on the show, and I'm quite disappointed at some of them, considering their views on certain things or in things like this. Now, this show, The Polygamist, whatever I'm about to say about this show has nothing to do with the actors per se, because the actors did a really good job, to the point where this show really got what it wanted. Like, the goal of this show, it got the reaction that they wanted. So shout out to all the actors. I'm saying this, I haven't watched the show, and I honestly think I won't watch the show because I already knew from the trailer what the show was going to be about. And I was right. Now, let's get to my prediction, what I predicted, because this is a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. And, it was a whole back and forth of what this show might be about. I've stopped watching shows or investing my time in watching shows because I feel like there's no longer new stories to tell. It's just how you tell the story. Now, this show in particular, my predictions were it's going to be a Zulu couple. The man is going to be Zulu, of course. The women are going to be Zulu, of course. They're going to demonize polygamy as a whole. And what was the other thing? And basically just to, kind of like show how something that is considered politically incorrect, how you can demonize something that's politically incorrect. Now, how did I reach these predictions? Like, how did I predict all of this? Well, first of all, here in South Africa, there's only one tribe that's actually known or still abide to this concept, and they are very vocal and loud about it, and that's the Zulus. Now, some other tribes still practice this, but they're not so vocal about it, and if they are vocal about it, the people of that tribe or the people of that nation don't consider this concept as politically incorrect. Now, with Zulus, the reason why I predicted it was Zulus, because in this country, the Zulus are the only warrior race, but I wouldn't say warrior race, let's just say the warrior tribe that's left. Other tribes, they've now become politically correct. So it's only the Zulus who's just now politically incorrect, because they're still the warrior tribe. And also, the reason why I predicted it was going to be Zulus because we are the lost tribe. Once the Zulus are officially conquered and now have to tread carefully and say things in a politically correct fashion. Once you conquer Zulus with that specifically, then the whole objective and the goal of this whole thing is achieved. Now, polygamy, obviously, what can I say what hasn't been said about polygamy? We are now glorifying lust and we are shaming love. First thing, we're glorifying lust and we are shaming love. Second thing, the idea of a beautiful family is now coming to the point where it's considered impossible. Because we are now at the point where if we see something on the internet, it's considered true. Or it's reality. This show showed me that it's going to take a long time to glorify love once again. Because the idea of love now is different to what it originally is. Now, I don't want to talk about love specifically because it's going to drift away from what I wanted to talk about in this episode. But obviously, men shouldn't have standards. You can do what you have to do as a man, achieve everything that you need to achieve, but you still can't have standards. Wow. Something that you've earned, you still can't have standards. Right. Now, I've only been talking about the men. Now let's talk about the women. Of course, they had to be Zulus because, other tribes have now reached a point where being or sharing a man is impossible. So, since the Zulus are still able to make this a success in a country where polygamy is considered politically incorrect, we have to make this idea impossible for Zulu women to even think about. Like it should be impossible to even consider. Leave the man out of it because the battle that's against men is totally different. And the battle against women is totally different. So these are different battles in one war. So my thing is, polygamy is a beautiful concept when it's done right. And if I was to refer or bring up a show that actually kind of did justice on polygamy, it was the show Isibaya. Before the end of it, the show Isibaya showed how polygamy, when done correctly, how beautiful it is. And women at that time, before it was considered politically incorrect, women at the time were almost or were starting to realize that polygamy is actually possible. And then obviously it started being politically incorrect, and then one of the wives now had to cheat on the husband and divorce the husband so that she could obviously be independent. Like, women being independent is not the problem. That's not the problem. But of course, since we are so sensitive and we have to be politically correct all the time, of course, that had to be the thing. But other shows where polygamy is practiced, you have to demonize it. So I was making a point on the fact that it's really hard to make things that were once glorified and that were once considered beautiful. It's kind of hard to glorify them because we are at the point where if something seems impossible, then that means even the exceptions to the rule aren't able to achieve that. And that's why I say we've gotten to the point where love is now demonized and it now glorifies lust because it seems like lust is easy to achieve. right? And in a way, I agree with why lust is easy to achieve. But then me agreeing with that is going to contradict everything that I'm saying about, or the point that I'm making with this episode, right? Because I could say, you know what, let me just get into it. My idea behind, there's this phrase that I'm looking for. Let me just say, first impressions last long. That's not the phrase, but there's a specific phrase that I'm looking for. This phrase, basically, it's telling us that, oh, love at first sight. Yes. I don't think love at first sight exists, actually. That's not true. That's impossible. I don't believe you can love someone at first sight. It's impossible. And I can't think of good exceptions to this rule. It's impossible. The first thing that gets you attracted to this person, if you're a woman, you get attracted to this guy, and if you're a guy, you get attracted to this woman, right? For me, it really doesn't make sense how you love a first person at first sight, because you are attracted by the visual appeal. So if you're not attracted by how they look like visually, you really need to, there's something else that should be appealing about them. But they already, there are some points that they don't get. And you kind of gonna be, you either have to be lenient to hear them out, because, sometimes beauty doesn't count, according to some people. Beauty doesn't count, right? But the fact that you are being more lenient means that you are trying to bring out something good about them. But that doesn't mean you love them, though. You haven't gotten to the point where you love them at first sight. So that's my opinion. It's a summary of like a 10-minute opinion. This summary is like a 20 or 30-second summary of like a 10-minute thing, right? And you'll know me. Anyway, back to my point. So this show, right? The story is beautiful. The publisher and the person who wrote the book, wonderful story. Like I said, the actors, and I forgot to mention, which I'm mentioning now, the person who created and wrote a book about the story, phenomenal, good. But it fits part of the bigger agenda of demonizing something that is considered politically incorrect. Because when polygamy is done right, it's like the epitome of love, basically. Because love is this one thing that we as children, we chase. Children, we look to our parents at how my mom treats my dad and how my dad treats my mom, and what I see is what I will be looking for when I start dating, right? So whatever you saw there is kind of what you're going to be expecting when you're in a relationship. It can change for the better or for the worse. You can be better, you can be worse. That's not where I'm at. Where I'm at is this show, or the narrative, or the agenda rather. The narrative of this show fits into the bigger agenda. Because the agenda is demonizing things that are considered beautiful. Right? And by beautiful, I mean politically incorrect. Now, don't think that because I'm classifying this love as beautiful whilst it's being politically incorrect, now you think every single thing that's considered politically incorrect, whether it's actually correct or not, means that it's beautiful. No, I'm saying this in this aspect, in this particular aspect. So my thing is, it fits into the bigger agenda, and After watching this show, who believes in love? Considering that I mentioned that after watching shows and TVs, right? After watching all of that, we believe into this fiction. We believe this story that was just created by someone. And this is what we have to look up to. So considering that, who believes in love? Firstly. Secondly, if you pay attention to everything, what do you think a person from another tribe thinks about the Zulus now that they've seen this show? If they've never had a opinion about Zulus when it comes to relationships, what do you think the opinion is going to be about Zulus when it comes to relationships? Thirdly, now this is where it gets tricky because you have to look at it from a man's perspective and then you have to look at it from a woman's perspective. Then you have to look at it from the perspective of if you believe in love or not, pro-life, pro-family, pro-whatever, right? Let me not complicate the whole thing because then it will become an hour episode, which I've never made. So basically, as a man, you're going to think it's impossible to have more than one woman. Now, whether that's politically correct or not, it's a different conversation. But I think you'll know what I mean by that. So, it's going to seem like it's impossible to have more than one woman and they are cordial. Let me just say cordial. In some instances, they become best friends. In some instances, the first wife brings their friend as a second wife. In some instances, they're enemies, like you saw in the show. So obviously, since we believe what you see on TV, this is what happens if you want or you love polygamy. And that's my argument. That's what I hate. And it goes back to what I started saying at the beginning of the show. This is what I said. I said, this show is a perfect example of how to demonize something that is considered politically incorrect. Y'all have heard all the opinions of the people who are known for making opinions and have podcasts and have talk shows and whatnot. You'll have heard of them, right? And I might be saying some things that they've said, whether I've viewed the content or not. But my point is, can we have a story that glorifies polygamy to show that it can be done right? Because like I said, there's only one show that I can think of genuinely that made polygamy a beautiful concept, a beautiful thing to watch and see. Obviously at the beginning, not towards the end. Other than that, there's no other show. No other show. Because those other shows bank on the fact that there's going to be drama. And the drama is obvious. And then they capitalize on that. And then polygamy doesn't work once again. And I bet you right now, I bet you right now, if there was to be a show with actors that are considered really up there and they glorify polygamy, it's not going to have the same numbers as any other show that demonizes polygamy. And that's a problem. Because at the end of the day, there's actually no disclaimer that says this is just a story. So, but here's what I'll say though, on a lighter note. Love is a beautiful thing, guys. If as a woman you don't have a problem with being in a polygamous relationship, be proud about that. Don't hide that. Okay? Don't hide it. You're only gonna make it worse for yourself. And as a guy, polygamy works, guys. But let's be realistic. If you are honest about yourself and about what you want, eventually you're going to attract the person or the people to do this thing with. And this applies to everything. But I'm not going to list those things because that's not part of this is not the topic of the episode. If you believe in manifestations, then I'll say you will manifest it. But let me not go into that. The more you're honest about the fact that you're polygamous, the more you'll attract women who pretty much don't have a problem with being in a polygamous relationship. They'll obviously have some boundaries and rules, and depending on how strong your backbone is, then you'll be able to wiggle yourself out of it. Okay? I don't advocate for this. I'm just saying, I'm just giving advice. I'm just talking, guys. I'm just a guy who talks, right? So just make sure that you're honest. That's all I'll say. And it's coming from experience. Okay, let's get that out of the way, guys. Okay, I can already feel people say, there we go. Okay, yes, it's coming from experience, right? Whatever. However, I'm saying, be honest about it, okay? Be honest about it. But anyway, guys, as I conclude this episode, firstly, can you get a show that glorifies polygamy? Whether it's 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives, 10 wives, it doesn't matter. Can we just get a show that glorifies polygamy? Firstly. Secondly, if we're demonizing polygamy, why does it have to be Zulu people? Like, really, I'm not trying to be tribalistic, okay? But like, why does it have to be Zulu people?
I want everybody to say, talk to me, Ntenjwa. Talk to me, Ntenjwa.